Again, we have been checking in with our different experts around the clock to get all of the latest information and get their take on everything. I want to bring in Enia Krivine with the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. She is a good friend of the show, joining us now live. Enia, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Josh, it's always great to see you, though they're usually in difficult circumstances.
Most definitely. And I wanted to ask what the situation is like on the ground right now. We know that folks are running into their shelters, they're having to leave. So can you kind of break down the situation for me?
Sure. And Josh, before we do that, if you'll allow me, we are in a hot conflict. I'm based in Israel, and my little sort of home studio is in my shelter. So if there is an alert, you'll see my family filing in. This isn't their first rodeo. They'll take a seat and we'll continue.
Well,
So,
you better go to the shelter if any sirens blare. I won't let you keep talking.
We're in the shelter. This is the
Okay.
shelter.
Gotcha.
You're joining me in my shelter, but my children may also join. So just as a heads up, but we've done this before. They know the drill, and they know that this is what mom does when we're at war sometimes here. So the day started at 8:15 with a siren that was nationwide, and essentially everyone receives an alert on their phone that says, "Okay, we've preemptively attacked Iran, and you need to make sure that you know where the nearest shelter is for the coming hours." And then there was a series of alerts in my area. Of course, the alerts are specific to region. So I'm further north, closer to Haifa. We had a very intense period from about 10 a.m. till about noon, and we've had a little bit of quiet since then. But I've been watching reports as other parts of the country, especially Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, have been under pretty consistent attacks since this morning.
And you kind of mentioned this, but if you think about it, you are almost used to this. This has become a way of life. Obviously, right now, it's probably a little bit more intense considering all of this is unfolding between the U.S. and Israel versus Iran. But this is almost a way of life.
Israelis have become used to it. Since October 7th, every single family has developed their own coping mechanisms. Everyone understands where the shelter is. The children know that what to do in case of a siren, whether they're in the house or out and about by themselves. So yes, they're very resilient people, and this has been the reality for 2 years. Of course, when the conflict becomes hot with Iran, this is the fourth round now that Israel has gone with Iran, it does up the ante because, as you know, Josh, from our previous conversations, their missiles and warheads are just much bigger payloads. So when something is going on with Iran, people are extra cautious. They want to stay much closer to shelters, and they want to know where their loved ones are.
And this is some of the video from earlier on this morning. Obviously, you can't hear it, but there are sirens that are blaring. And that's been, as we mentioned, kind of the situation that's been taking place throughout the morning. Now, as far as the mission itself, I've asked this of a lot of people, but what do you make of the fact that the U.S. and Israel worked on this together? They made sure that this happened together in a joint military operation.
So that's no surprise to me, as since the beginning, since Donald Trump took office, all of these proactive military operations by Israel have been hand in glove with the Americans, either through close coordination or in some instances, as we saw last June in the 12-day war, it was with the U.S. actually operating, the U.S. military operating with the Israeli military when the U.S. took out the nuclear sites. What's very interesting about what's happening now, Josh, and this is a historic moment, is that because Iran has lashed out at assets all over the region, including in Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia as well. All of these places have now received fire from Iran as a result of this war and retaliation for the U.S. and Israeli operation. Now the tone is very different and super interesting from the Gulf countries and the other Arab allies of the U.S. And they are taking on a tone, instead of being diplomatic and trying to de-escalate and wanting to stay out of it, it looks like they may also get into this war as well. So that is the new thing here. That is what we're seeing for the first time, and that could really change things on the ground. You heard my alarm there. Right now, that's just a warning. There's no siren here yet, but again, that could change.
Would you say that this was a long time coming? That's been something that folks have been talking about. They said the current Iranian regime needs to be taken down. Ali Khamenei needs to be taken out of power. That's been a sentiment that's been shared by the Iranian civilians as well. So, was this essentially a long time coming?
It's been coming for decades, Josh. I mean, as you know, the Iranian Revolution involved taking over 200 Americans hostage and holding them in the US Embassy. And I think that the clock started ticking then. It just took a leader like Donald Trump who said to say enough is enough. And what's interesting is about 6 weeks ago, almost 2 months ago, when the Iranian people, the brave Iranian people, were demonstrating in the streets against the regime, and the regime slaughtered unknown thousands. We may never know exactly how many Iranians were killed by the regime during those demonstrations. Donald Trump said on camera to the Iranian people, he said, help is on its way. And this was a huge shot in the arm to Iranians. This encouraged them so much, but then the help never came. And here we are 2 months later, and people were assuming that that had been an empty threat and that Donald Trump had essentially drawn a red line that he wouldn't enforce. He said if the regime continued with the executions, the US would actually send troops to help the Iranian people, and then he didn't for 2 months. However, the whole time he was sending assets to the region, and he was trying to get the Iranians back into some sort of negotiations where he could reach a deal. Those negotiations happened last week. He did not like the results. They were set to continue on Monday, but it looks like he had decided to finally enforce that red line, to finally send the Iranian people the help that he had promised during the height of their demonstrations.
One thing that's interesting, you talked about those talks on Monday. We were initially told that Secretary of State Marco Rubio was going to travel over to Israel this weekend, specifically today, to meet with Netanyahu. And then that was pushed back to Monday or sometime later in the week, this coming week. Do you think that was maybe a distraction? Because I have to imagine it's going to be tough for Rubio to travel over to Israel as all of this is going on. Do you think that was some kind of distraction?
So it could well have been. We've seen these distractions, these red herrings from Trump in the past. We know he likes to exercise the element of surprise, but you got to give the guy credit. I mean, he has been amassing troops in the region for the past 6 weeks to 2 months. This is the biggest force buildup since the Iraq War that the U.S. has had in the Middle East. And yet, even with all of these assets in place, even with slowly bringing down personnel from the region, even with only on Friday, the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem telling their non-essential personnel to leave the country, it was still somehow a surprise attack. I mean, you got to give it to this guy. He really knows how to play his cards, and he really knows how to enforce his red lines.
Enia Krivine, I appreciate it as always. Of course, there's so much going on here and we're piecing it together. We have some limited information. There's stuff that we don't know just yet. I want to pop this up on your screen. This is coming in from the Is that an
Sorry,
alert?
Rob, that's another alert.
Do you need to go?
No, I'm in my bomb shelter. I am safe. And I just heard my children go to our neighbor's house. Their
Okay.
dad is home. So they looks like they're scooting over there. We can continue.
I'm going to keep asking you that because I want to make sure that you stay safe.
You're so kind.
Well, the Israel Defense Forces just posting here, they have some video and they said struck operatives from the Iranian regime's surface to surface missiles unit as they loaded a missile launcher and prepared to immediately launch toward Israel. The threat was identified and quickly struck, preventing the launch aimed toward Israel. And as I mentioned, we do actually have some of the video that's coming in from the Israel Defense Forces showing as it's all playing out. Wanted to get your take because I'm sure at some point the U.S. is going to release some video of some kind as well. The fact that this video is released and allows people to kind of get a taste of what happened there and a look at kind of how it played out. What does that say to you overall? What do you take away from this video here?
So I think the Israelis want to communicate with the people how important and how cutting edge their technology is, and the type of technological superiority that they have in the region, the fact that they're able to video these potential strikes as they're happening and eliminate them on the ground in Iran, which is thousands of miles away, is really astounding. And I think what it's saying to the nation is reinforcing confidence and superiority, which is what you want to hear when your loved ones are serving, when your cities are under attack, and when you're cowering in a shelter on the Sabbath. You want to hear from the IDF that they know what they're doing, that this is planned out, and that they're gonna win this this confrontation.
And of course, we're waiting to see what the next step is. This could last, we're told, hours. It could last days. It's unclear. All of that kind of up in the air. Enia Krivine, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, helping to break down all of the latest information here. Anything that we missed or anything that you want to make sure we mention here before I let you go?
Well, one of the things that I've been thinking about is what's going on in Donald Trump's mind. You know, you have him making statements like, we want to see a surrender. And it would be truly an astounding thing to see this regime surrender. This is a regime that has been firmly in place since 1979. This is a regime that has wreaked just untold havoc. There was a new report just recently that said that the number of U.S. soldiers who were killed in Iraq and Afghanistan, that a large percent of them, larger than we even thought before, were at the hands of Iranian weapons and militias. So just the fact of what a moment we're living through now, and just the fact that with all of these months of preparation, Trump still managed to get the element of surprise. It truly is astounding.
Yeah, no leaks, nothing like that kind of gave this away. A lot of us woke up in the middle of the night and heard that it was happening. Of course, it was a little later where you are. Enia, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Please stay safe.
Thank you, Josh. I will.